Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to call upon Mr. Ahmad Abu Eideh, who's the CEO of Investbank. Ahmad is a familiar face in the UAE banking circles. He's been around for a while. He's been around for many years in investment and corporate banking with HSBC and ABN AMRO. Then he moved as CEO of Stanchart Middle East. Then on to United Arab Bank as the CEO, and now in his latest role as the CEO of Investbank. So welcome, Ahmed. Good to have you here. Yeah. So Ahmed, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully nobody needs coffee as yet. We'll keep the session going. So I just want to start by just getting your views on the latest trends or digital trends that are impacting customer experience for both retail and corporate banking and SME clients from a CEO's point of view,
Thank you, Murtaza. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thanks for the invite. From a CEO's point of view, Murtaza's trying to protect me. That's so that, CEOs are maybe a bit, they're not hands-on. You don't need to worry about that. You don't need to worry about that. No need to protect me, sir. So we can talk about digital trends forever, and the conferences on digital trends are so many. Every day, there's so many conferences on the same topic. And I think the market is overdoing it, in fact. When simply digital, we've been talking about digitization in banks since 2007, 2008. A bit before, but some banks were ahead, some banks were behind. And, it went into phases, a number of phases, digitization. And it was fashionable to talk about digitization. Today, the banks don't really have any option whatsoever, other than a total shift in the way of thinking. If we keep on with the traditional way of thinking, we become as extinct as dinosaurs in a very short period of time, in a few years' time. Some banks are still there, and it's unfortunate because they will be out of business very soon, I can assure you, through M&A or through just disappearing from the whole arena. Corporate, retail, SMEs, each and every one of these businesses has its own characteristics. Now, on the digital side, retail, in my opinion, is way more advanced, and the optionality on the retail banking side is by far more. Doesn't mean that corporate or wholesale banking and SMEs aren't. But what I can apply to a retail customer in terms of digital experience is much more. You talk about generations, who is using the digital channels. I wasn't here in the morning, I wasn't here in the afternoon, I just came here 20 minutes ago. But I'm sure a lot have spoken about Generation Z, millennials, I'm sure.
Yes.
Without even being here. We can talk about them and the total different mindset to someone like me, who's an old fart, and from a totally different generation, Generation X, and the values, the way we think is totally different. I do a lot of financial inclusion sessions, by the way, as a passion. And I do talk to university students, I talk to school students, I talk to underprivileged people. And I talk to people, not in the UAE, we don't have many of those, but in my home country, Jordan, I do talk to a lot of people in rural areas where they don't have access to even a laptop.
Sure.
And I do talk to these people, and the aim is to educate these people on what it does mean to save money, what it does mean to not abuse your credit card. Very important. Now, I do smoke myself, and on the pack of cigarettes it says smoking kills, but I still smoke, right? So when I do talk to people, I do tell them what they need to think about when they use their credit card, and how to look at the embedded cost, the interest rate, how high it is on a credit card and what have you. At the end of the day, it's their choice. Now, when I do talk to Gen Z, I get asked this question so many times. What would your first investment be? And I would answer the same, I'd give the same answer every time. I'd buy my first flat.
House.
Yeah, I'd buy my first flat. To us, or to my generation, owning your house, owning a ceiling, whether it's a flat or a villa or whatever it is, it's a sign of, safety, stability for you and your loved ones, that no landlord can come to you and start hiking up the rents, kicking you out, whatever it is. And I get the same reaction every time I talk to Gen Z. Oh, look at this idiot. He's spending so much money on buying a flat. But Ahmad, flats are very expensive. Yeah, I know, but I'll still do that. But you can rent a flat. That's the answer I get. Every time. Or, why do you need to buy a car? You can get a car, rent a car on an app. And so I say, what do you do with the money rather than investing it in some fixed asset? Usually the answer is, we want to experiment. We want to spend our money on lifestyle. We want to go and do an expedition of the Amazon, or go to some jungle somewhere in Vietnam and live with the natives. That's where we want to spend our money. Now, that's a gold mine for us bankers, by the way. Have we actually shifted our mindset to providing the right products to this generation? Some banks have, to some extent, some banks have not. And we can talk about super apps. I can also discuss, though I'm a CEO, by the way, I can talk about open APIs, integration. I can talk about so many other things that a modern banker needs in his day-to-day job. We need it. And that's just to give you a hint about the mentality that should be applied on the retail banking side. On the corporate banking side, what is there? There's cash management, there's trade. That's the meaty stuff. What have we done actually as bankers to automate and to digitize the corporate banking world? We provided apps to companies where they can see their balances, where they can send an LC application, but what have we done on the back end? Have we applied artificial intelligence to review and check the LC documents? No, we haven't. What infrastructure did we use to apply international transfers other than SWIFT? What is SWIFT at the end of the day? Well, I'm sure some of you, just like me, I've been in banking 30 years, by the way.
Yes.
And 30 years ago, when I was doing my transfers for the bank, I used to do tested telex. Then we went to SWIFT, and we used to have this huge manual on tested telex. It was cumbersome. SWIFT made life easier. But do we really need SWIFT today to operate in a bank? Have we actually done the right thing? And when we say digital, when I want to give my customer the optionality to send me a transfer request. It's a Dropbox. It goes to operations, someone in operations has a look, and then they go to good old Swift and perform the operation, the transfer. It has to go through our correspondent banking network, right? Is that efficient? Have we actually done justice to the digital part of that, making a simple transfer? Are there options? Can I use the back end of other APIs who are much more experienced than I am? And payments and transfers is their core job. Have I hooked up their APIs in my environment and started doing the instant transfers on the spot? So we can go on and on. Trends have shifted.
Of course. Yeah.
Sorry, Murtaza.
Yeah.
Trends have shifted. We as banks have not shifted our mentality in the same speed as fintechs have, as our customers have, and people are just using our services because they don't have any other option. We can do better.
Yeah, sure. And what you said is completely true in terms of the front end and the back end in terms of providing an experience. But Ahmed, now you are in a very enviable position in this new role where there is obviously been the case where a lot of banks have a head start in terms of their digital customer journeys. They've started a few years back. You're coming, there is obviously a bit of catch up to do. There might be some advantages of learning from some of the mistakes some of the banks made during the journeys. So just explain, I mean, you have a short time. Are you playing catch up? Are you trying to, how are you driving this whole innovation in customer experience?
Sure. I don't think anyone can envy me in particular. The assignments I take are, I restructure banks.
Yes.
That's what I do for a living. And I've done a few of those. So that's the toughest job in banking. It's not a joke. It's not a joke, I can assure you. That's a minimum 12 to 15-hour job a day. But I'll tell you, I'll give you a live example of taking advantage of such a situation. So believe it or not, with my bank today, we never had a retail bank. It was always a corporate bank. And it's being restructured. It's in public domain. We have billions of dirhams of losses. And you need to look at the half full of the cup. Not having a retail bank to me is such a blessing that I didn't need to deal with legacy issues. I did not. I've set up a retail bank, but I set up a retail bank that, I'm just awaiting my, I can see Chetan nodding with a big smile on his face, and I would like to thank you and Team Chetan for helping us choose the current core banking system that we're applying. Next week, everyone will get to know about the features, but I can tell you they're very unique features, very unique features. We'll have some firsts in the UAE that we'll be announcing for the choice of the core banking system. But today when I set up a retail bank, I set up the skeleton that I need to run a very digitized, highly digitized retail bank. I didn't need to deal with legacy.
Any legacy, yeah.
Today, my team can testify, I gave them such a hard time, and I had to intervene personally. So everyone knows what a product manager is, right? Product manager. Every bank has a product manager.
Absolutely.
I had to go through 8 candidates personally to hire a product manager. And I didn't get him from I didn't want him to come from a banking environment. I took him from a fintech. Because that's the skill set I need.
And the mindset.
And the mindset.
Yeah.
Payments, strategic alliances, which APIs to pick and choose in an open environment, hopefully, once we get the regulation in place, which APIs to hook up on a lifestyle sort of banking offering. And who better to bring than, someone who's actually done it in a fintech. That's the advantage. Am I catching up? Today, I'm representing a bank, and I say it, and I'm not ashamed of it today. I don't even have an app today. Why don't I have an app? I mean, apps have been in banks for 10 years plus, more. I don't have an app. My current core banking system is not compatible even with having an app. But in 4 or 5 months' time, I'll have an app that is better than any app in the market. But that's not where it ends. Where it actually ends is the app after that, the V2, which will be a lifestyle app, and it will be a super app. And where I'm going into e-commerce, for example. I'll be competing with others.
So the focus is more the newer generation, is it, Ahmad?
So to answer your question, because I didn't answer your question, it's not catch-up. It's not catch-up. It's leap jumping. Leap jumping from offering 1980s, 1990s banking to 2030 offering. Unfortunately for me, as a regulated organization, banks are regulated, very highly regulated.
Yes.
I have to still be called a bank because by regulation, I am a bank. I wish I couldn't be called a bank because that also, imposes some limitation on me. Because the way we want to think and the way we want to be viewed in the market is a fintech with branches. That's how we want to be viewed. On to your next question, sir.
No, so obviously you spoke about lifestyle, you spoke about putting in the latest technologies. Is the experience you're looking to drive at aimed primarily at the newer generations, Z and
Primarily on the retail banking side, yes.
Yes.
On the wholesale banking, the market or the digital element on the wholesale banking, I think is many banks have really done a good job. But I think they've reached to a level of maturity where they're not thinking on what more to enhance. Some are toying around with blockchain, especially on trade. But we need to see a fundamental shift. Till this moment, I don't really see a fundamental shift. You've digitized whatever you can digitize. But have we looked at the actual end product, the processes? They've simplified the processes. Have we cut through the processes and redefined these processes into something that's really compatible with a fully digital environment? I don't see that, honestly.
And you being, like you said, more or less a greenfield bank has helped you do that, right? Because there is not really to look back at.
It does. This is another blessing. It is a blessing. Other than the 12, 15-hour job you have to do on the brick and mortar stuff and restructure an organization. But I don't need to actually tackle a lot of legacy when it comes to digitization.
Right.
So I'm just doing the leap jump.
So just curious, Ahmad, coming from a smaller organization, obviously there is a bunch of shareholders, there are expectations from shareholders. As you said, you've been looking at losses, and now there is a huge investments that are going into technology, digitization. I mean, how easy a sell is it to the board to take that leap and putting them on the road to 2030,
Yes, so the amounts that you need to spend these days are not as high as people think, okay? Why do people spend, or banks, why do banks spend so much money? They spend so much money on the senior management, the board, don't understand what it is to be a really top digital or digitized organization. So we spend so much money on consultants everywhere, on every rivet. That hikes up the prices. Sorry, Cedar, your consultants. But at the end, yeah, we do need consultants, but we don't need consultants for every nitty-gritty. And when a CEO goes to the board to get approvals, usually the board would like to see a rubber stamp, or apologies, and would like to see that we've spent so much money on building the case. Cost is not as prohibitive these days as it used to be. Right. Okay? So, with minimal resources, you can come up with something so innovative. What you need, and which is more important than having a big pocket or a deep pocket, you need to have the courage to take some decisions that are earth-shaking and get these things done. And believe me, you'll find support from regulators. Next week, when we do an announcement on our core, with the specifications that I've specifically asked for, which is tailor-made. Part of it is tailor-made. I would have expected the central bank to sleep on it for a couple of months. They need to really dig deep and get the technical part really assessed. We got it within 1 week. 1 week. And, people in the know are surprised that within 1 week, and I see the big smile on Chetan's face. These specifications, they need a lot of technical sort of people to do deep dives on them and actually see the implications. We got that, and it's done. So central bank was quite supportive, in fact, when they approved it within 1 week. And they allowed us to start immediately with implementation.
Excellent. And also, like you mentioned about the product manager having a different skill set, obviously this kind of bank with this kind of experience that you're trying to build, I mean, that will require even many people and many positions having completely different mindset, right? Yes. Because it's a huge change.
It is. It is. Being a banker of 30 years, out of which I've been a CEO 14 years, out of 30 years. With blessings of friends like us, SRE sitting over there. We used to work together when I was a 39-year-old CEO of a bank. Mindset over these years, mindset is the most challenging aspect of any job. Mindset, it's the most time-consuming for a CEO. Changing the mindset of an organization is the #1 challenge to any CEO. It's very difficult. It takes time. And human beings, being human beings, everyone has their own capacity and capability. And to get the buy-in from everyone, it's really difficult. I wouldn't say mission impossible, but it's really difficult and it takes time. That is the element that we need. Someone like me needs to spend a lot of time, energy, and effort and communication to manage to get things done.
So, Ahmad, having heard you on your journey, if you were to list the top 3 critical success factors of building this kind of completely different customer experience, a bank with this kind of change, what would you list that down for people out there who also want to look at something similar in future?
Having courage to test and experiment. Generally, bankers don't like that. Testing, we are already in the business of taking risk, right? Not every loan we book, we get our money back, and we lose money sometimes. So we are risk averse by nature. And when I tell a banker to be really courageous and take the leap of faith, that is the first, my first advice. Be courageous. Yeah, you make a mistake, what happens? Your neck? Well, it's worth it, believe me. If you want to really do something really unique, have the courage. It's not as expensive as you may think it is. And more importantly, need to have a team that is fully aligned, understands the vision, and is executing on a vision. We need to understand we're dealing with human beings. Not everyone's the same, and it takes a lot of effort and energy to actually adapt yourself to your team members and give them the encouragement they need. Don't think like a traditional banker. Listen much more, this is my third advice. Listen to fintechs. Listen to fintechs. Fintechs, in what they do, are better than bankers. And this is a banker talking to you. Why so? Usually fintechs would have, like any organization, there may be a startup at the infancy stage. They may be looking for seed funding. They may be looking for tier 1 funding at some point in their development. These guys don't make it. If they don't make it, they lose the investment. They may lose their future. They're very hungry to do business. And their ears are closer to the ground. So I would listen to them as much as I can, apply what I can, throw out the crazy ideas that some of them throw at me, throw the idea out of the window. Don't need to entertain it. I don't need to actually do it. I need to listen to what they have to say. So this is my advice.
Excellent. Gives us a perspective in terms of where we are getting to. I would like to open the floor because this is an interesting session. We're having a bank which is kind of really undergoing a sea change, and I'm sure there are some questions out there that you'd like to check with Ahmad. Anybody?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ahmad, it's great to see you, and we did work together, and we worked very harmoniously, and it was wonderful. It's interesting that you said you weren't here, but it's almost as if you were here, because actually we've kind of gone full circle today, because we heard this morning our very first opening speaker say how much, obviously, the fintechs and disruptors have grown much faster than the incumbents, the banks, the stodgy. And I'm a banker of 35 years as well, so I have to declare a hand here. But I'm now a fintechie, so I'm very interested to, obviously, to hear what Ahmed has just said. But why is it, one thing you said, and you were absolutely right, when banks have not traditionally listened carefully to what customers want, that was another theme that Ian and one of our previous speakers said, that we haven't had the courage to innovate. Maybe because institutionally, the way that banks are set up, you mentioned it, highly risk averse. They're actually, the systems and governance processes are antipathetic to innovation, which is a worrying thing. So 2 questions. How have you managed to do that? Because your point about the mindset is absolutely right. How have you got people moving in that respect and willing to innovate? Because we have such bifurcation in processes and specialization in banks that it's difficult for 1 or 2 people to actually innovate because they've got only one bit of the system. And my second question is, Ahmed is a real specialist in corporate banking. It was a great pleasure for me he was my counterpart in corporate banking. I was in wealth and private banking. So why is it, you mentioned that innovation is everywhere in retail banking, in digital innovation, but why is it that it hasn't happened in corporate? What's up there?
Sure. Thanks, Stephen. So on the first point, regulators across the world have applied, UK has applied open banking. regulation. Australia has, Singapore has, South Korea has. It's getting closer to our region. Bahrain was the first country in the Middle East to issue the open banking regulations in Bahrain. Egypt, I thought Egypt would be a number 2, but I heard that yesterday Saudi issued their regulation.
Yes.
Egypt would be probably the number 3. UAE is to follow early next year. UAE's regulation is taken a bit more time, simply because UAE wants a hybrid regulation, and they've looked at UK, South Korea, and Singapore, and they're coming up with a hybrid. So if the regulators are putting in place regulations to enhance innovation, I think that's where it starts. We are a highly regulated industry. This gives us motivation to do much better. Believe it or not, the way I operate with the central bank, I usually, before going for an official approval, I sound them out. I ask, would you approve such a thing? They'll come back to me saying no, or tweak it and send it and we'll approve it. Because the minute a regulator says no, it's a no. It's never going to be a yes. So I was talking to them about hiring a specific candidate for the role of Chief Operating Officer. Now, a traditional Chief Operating Officer is well known. You need to have trade experience, you need to have transfers, you need to do clearing, and you need to be strong in IT as well to get a COO role. CIO, you're just strong in IT. Head of operations, you're just strong in operations. COO is a combination of both. And central bank is really fussy about approving COOs. Really fussy. It's one of the most difficult jobs these days to get an approval. And I identified someone from this market who's not done trade. And I sent his behind the scenes application to the central bank. And I said, central bank, the role of a chief operating officer these days is changing. Within a highly digitized environment, I need a totally different skill set to your own definition. So in other words, I'm asking the regulator, telling them that you need to change your mindset as well. You're pushing and you're supporting and sponsoring digitization. So you need to start with yourself. Would you allow me to hire this gentleman as a COO who's not done trade? Traditionally, they would throw his application out of the window. They would say no, hire him as a head of IT, CIO, because he's strong in IT. They didn't say no. They said, we get your point, we understand times are changing, and if you submit his application officially, he'll have to go through the process. That means it's not a no. So my answer to you is, on the first question, regulators are changing the way they operate, and this is very encouraging. Second part of the question, or second question, it's not that corporate hasn't advanced, it has advanced. We haven't helped, we as bankers have provided limited optionality to our corporate customers on what they can and can't do. What I'm saying is there's still much more room for improvement when I was hinting to using the back end of a payments company rather than SWIFT, yeah, for instant payments. Using AI to check LC applications. Only exceptions would go to a human being to check. And then processing an LC, which is, there's an interface between the machine and your, for example, just to name names, maybe it's a Western Union backend that you're using. And it would go through full, digitized. And you can also add on to that the blockchain technology. So I don't think that banks have actually started really thinking out of the box. I think, again, fintechs, being fintechs, and they're looking at the masses, and fintechs are looking much more aggressively at the unbanked population. They're trying to find solutions for the unbanked. And let's not forget that fintechs, again, being startups, are in the multiples game. They just want to increase the multiple value of the company and sell a story. So I think this is driven by why more focus on retail. Focus on retail is being driven by the opportunities provided by the fintechs for this much bigger population of human beings that would yield immediate profitability and higher multiples values for the fintechs. I think on the corporate banking side, we need to do much more. We need to totally think out of the box, redesign our processes, redesign our thinking process, and take risks and take the leap of faith. I think much more can be done on the corporate banking side. We haven't done it.
Okay, I think we are running bang on time. Thank you so much, Ahmad.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your perspective.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Now, just one last, bear with me for a few more seconds. On the word disruption, and that's the buzzword. People follow a lot, fancy buzzwords in the industry. Disruption people started using that word a couple of years ago. We're still using it till this moment. I wouldn't think about disruption as disruption, or banking, or fintechs disrupting the banking industry. That, I think, is not correct. But what we need to think about is a total shift, not disruption, shift in the way we do business. Otherwise, we become irrelevant. And now I thank you so very much